Hello and welcome to the Coaching Crowd podcast with me, Zoe Hawkins, and my friend and co-host Jo Wheatley.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's podcast, which is all about the principles of emotions in coaching. And the reason that Zoe and I wanted to talk to you about this today is because it forms the heart of our coaching style. And we're also going to be launching an emotions coaching program for people to be able to come and join us on. So we wanted to give you some thoughts and inspirations around emotions and to help you understand the role that emotions play within coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we just start before we go into the principles with a broad picture around where do emotions, come up in coaching? Well, of course, our emotions are a universal human experience. And so every client who comes to coaching, yes, with their ambitions, their outcomes, their desires, but they come with all of the emotions that are attached to that journey and what that might mean for them. So emotions come up everywhere in coaching. And the reason we're so passionate about working with emotions in coaching is because often I think it can feel like emotions are a no-go zone, that actually it's unsafe to help people with their emotions in coaching. And it's just not true. There's so much that you can do when working with clients on their emotions and helping people, whether they are at one end of the continuum around feeling emotionally flooded and unable to express themselves, or clients who come to coaching who are slightly more detached from their emotions. And actually, much of their growth is about getting back in touch with how they feel and what their needs are. So that's some of the scene setting for the principles of emotion. So there are 6. So why don't you kick us off with the first one, Jo?
Yeah, and just before I do that, I'm just reflecting on the event that we held recently, which was an in-person event for coaches, from all different fields. And we shared with them these principles of emotions that we've kind of created as hallmarks of our coaching. And also we shared with them 3 new emotions coaching activities that we have created. And the relief in the room from those coaches of like, oh my goodness, I've so desperately needed this. I know I need to do more with my coachees around this area, but I didn't really know where to go or the impact. And so of course they got to practice as coach and also as coachee, and to be able to experience the impact of those tools and techniques. And I think it really feels an unmet need that coaches have, which is to be able to expand their range of transformational tools, but in particular in relation to emotions. So the first principle of emotions in coaching that we talk about are that emotions are neither good nor bad. It is really our thinking that makes it so. So people generally will think about emotions such as happiness, joy, love, trust, and maybe as positive emotions, things they want to have. And then they might also label other emotions like anger, sadness, guilt, fear as bad. And that then can trigger a second layer of emotion, a secondary emotion, such as shame for having experienced those things. And as Zoe was talking about, as human beings, it's natural for us to be able to experience a full range of emotions. If we think about ourselves as babies, we don't filter our emotions as babies, we express them, and that's healthy. But through the environments that we grow up in, we are often taught, or we interpret, that certain emotions are accepted and therefore are good and welcome and safe, and other emotions are not welcome and can feel unsafe as a result of the consequences that we experience when we express them. So we then learn to do different things with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the problem when we classify emotions as good or bad is those that we classify as bad, we often want to get away from them. So if we took the example of anxiety, if you have the belief that anxiety is a bad emotion, when you experience it, you're going to want to get away from it as fast as you can. And so instead of being able to learn from that emotion and understand what that emotion is there for, we instead engage a different part of our brain, which is to to bury it, to run away from it, to get overwhelmed by it, to fear it even more. And so then you're stuck in a cycle of anxiety becoming more and more and more. And that's just one emotion. So, what we do with this principle in coaching is just help clients to deconstruct, what are the beliefs that I hold about this emotion? What's another way of seeing that? So, I think when you're working with clients and they say, oh, I experience quite a lot of anxiety, often many coaches will just brush by that and focus on the goal. Our approach would be to explore that with curiosity. What's that like for you? How does that show up? What are the thoughts that you have about anxiety? What does anxiety feel like to you in the context of their goal? So if their goal is to be able to, I don't know, lead with more confidence, then actually the emotion of anxiety is probably a big part of that client's growth. So that's just one way that we work with that emotion. The second principle is that you are not your emotions. And so what we mean by this is you may come out of a meeting and you might think, oh my gosh, why did I say that? I'm so stupid. When in reality, you might be feeling stupid for having fluffed your words or said something that didn't go down so well, or sharing an opinion or a thought that was ill-formed or had a bad impact on the room, or whatever it might have been. But we can embody our emotions. And so tell us more about this principle, Jo.
Yeah, well, it's something that we hear a lot when we're training coaches. We hear them say, I am sad, or, I am frightened. And the point of helping our coachees to understand that they are not their emotions is it can create a distance between them and the emotion. And that distance enables them to be able to look at it almost in a 360, to travel around it, to be able to identify what is the need that is signaling. How is this helpful to me? So considering those things and being able to experience it, and it gives them that new perspective. And in that space between themselves and the emotion is the opportunity to make new choices, and choose our reaction to it, choose how we want to relate to it. So that distance can be so powerful, and we can work with metaphor very, very well in this area as well. So sharing some of these principles with our coachee can really just enable them to breathe in many ways, like just to get that space from their emotions, to start to consider their relationship to it. So the third principle is that emotions are unmet needs.
Yeah. And this goes back to what we were saying before around spending time to understand your emotions. So emotions don't happen just because, like, they happen for a reason. So if you're experiencing joy, it's probably because something has happened, or you're doing something that is bringing you that joy. Or if you're feeling sad, it's usually in response to something. And so these emotions are there to help us to understand, what is it that I need right now? So if you take a positive emotion, happiness, as you're experiencing joy and happiness, what is the need there? The need is to be present in this moment, perhaps, to take it all in, to create the memory in my mind so that I can draw on this experience for time to come. That might be a need, as an example. If you're experiencing frustration, which tends to be in the negative camp that clients come with, then frustration can be looked at with curiosity to explore what is happening here. How come I'm experiencing frustration? What does the frustration need in order to pass through rather than to stay stuck? And that might help you to flip into, frustration needs clarity, or frustration needs knowledge, or frustration needs information. So all of our emotions will have unmet needs. And for some of those needs, it might be surface level needs that we can go and get met, and we can go and ask to have those needs met. For others, let's take anxiety as an example, that might take us down a track of recognizing, I have unmet needs about safety, but those safety needs aren't about the present. They're actually about things that have happened in the past. And that might lead the client into a journey where they go into exploring things that are unresolved for them, be it not in the coaching space but elsewhere in a therapeutical space. So emotional work doesn't have to be deeply therapeutical. It is absolutely about helping the client to get in contact with their emotions so they can understand their needs, in order that those emotions can pass through, and from that comes learning and growth.
And what about happiness? What would be the unmet need?
So that's what I was saying with happiness, is around to be present. So, I'm experiencing happiness as a signal for me to pay attention, for me to, create almost like a photograph in my mind to capture the moment. The unmet need is about continuing to find moments of joy, and excitement to nourish me, so I think there's no right or wrong about what the needs are. I think it's, what does it mean for you? Like curiosity is another one that I think is a great emotion to explore from an unmet need. What does curiosity need? Curiosity needs fascination, or curiosity needs intrigue and excitement. I think those, looking at positive emotions for an unmet need, takes you on a journey of discovery as well.
Yeah, and those are the conversations that we have with our coachees, aren't they? So as the coach, we'll ask them, what is the unmet need? And then we go, I don't know. And rather than just scooting on because the client has said, oh, I don't know, and then you're thinking, oh no, did I ask a question that wasn't helpful there? It's about being able to stay in that and explore that with them. So principle number 4 is that emotions are not always authentic. And what we mean by this is that sometimes we might experience an emotion, and if we relate back to the needs part, we respond to that emotion and the needs that we think that represents for us, and somehow we don't feel any better, and that becomes confusing. So emotions are not always authentic. I like to think about it as almost as the layering of emotions. So for example, if you experience anger, it may be that it's a cover for the layer underneath, and that real emotion, the authentic emotion, might be sadness. And the reason that might happen is, it might be that in your family, or in the environment in which you grew up in, sadness might not have been welcomed or accepted. So if you cried, that might have been not tolerated, and so you still had that emotion and the energy associated with that, and it needed to be expressed. So you learned to express it through anger. So it's like a masking. And so in the present day, though, as an adult, for example, when you express anger, other people will think it's anger because you're expressing it as anger. It looks like anger, it sounds like anger, so they're interpreting it as anger, and they're responding to you as if it is anger. And they might even apologize to you, but you might still feel unfulfilled, that you're still holding something. If you can understand what are those layers of emotions, those patterns that you might have, it will help you then be able to explain to those people that you're in relationship with that sometimes you express that emotion as something else. So it might not always be what it looks like.
Yeah. And you only have to look at children to see some of this as well. A child who is expressing anger, they might actually be experiencing fear, but they don't have the words to articulate the fear. So they're shouting, no, I don't want to, whereas actually what they're saying is, I'm afraid, but they don't have the language. And that's no different for adults, because often adults just don't have the emotional linguistics to be able to express what it is that they're feeling. So like you've said there, Jo, like it's not just about what you feel, but in relationship, being able to communicate those authentic needs. So using this principle, we also help our clients to extend their emotional range, to understand what their needs are, and to articulate those needs using language that feels right for them. And that's both in the workplace, of course, and also in relationships beyond the workplace in their broader life. So when you work with emotions in coaching, the ripple effect, the transformational impact on a client's life is felt far beyond what might just be starting perhaps in that corporate space.
Yeah.
So the next one then is that our emotions are linked to our thoughts and our actions. And this comes from the concept of cognitive behavioral therapy or cognitive behavioral coaching, and that we don't just have thoughts and we don't just have feelings and we don't just do actions. They're all interconnected. And the way that we think and the way that we feel and the way that we act are all in this loop together. And from an emotions perspective, we help our clients to understand what are they feeling in relation to the thoughts and the actions that they have. And if they want to feel a different way, then perhaps they could start by thinking about it differently or by doing something differently. So we use the connection to help clients to create change. You will also hear in coaching conversations, people lead with different states, right? So a client might be very emotionally intuitive and lead with their emotions. Like, I feel this and I feel that. And you may have a client who will use language around, well, I think this and I think that. And then you'll get these clients who think about their emotions. So I think I feel afraid, or I think I feel happy. And so with those clients, it's about helping them to almost disconnect. Do you think that, or do you feel that? And what would that be if you had that clarity around what it actually felt like rather than what you think it might feel like? And those all sound like really subtle questions, but actually when you try to answer those questions as that client, it can make profound shifts in the way that you experience the world, the perspectives that you're able to gain on the different situations and relationships that you have, and again can be deeply transformational.
Yeah, and also it's about being able to acknowledge what is in the here, in the here and now, and what are those default patterns, and also how would they like it to be different, because coachees are coming to coaching relationship because they want something to change. And as you then start to explore what they'd like to have happen, what would they like to think? And if they thought that, what would they then feel? Well, if I thought that, I'd feel that. Okay, so if you thought that and felt that, what would you then do next? And then they'll say, well, I would do that. Okay, and for some people that would be enough. That will click something new into place for them, and it all becomes really simple. For others, they might be able to identify that but still feel like, but I don't feel like that, or I don't think that yet. And that's where we'll then look at some of those underlying beliefs, or what's creating that sabotage for them, and those blockers that are getting in the way. But it is recognizing that nothing exists in a vacuum. And as Zoe was talking about, like, where do we tend to lead from? So really, it's just helping our clients to learn more about themselves and build their relationship with themselves, so that they then can develop their relationships with others, which will enable them to achieve what they want to in life. And then the final principle of emotions in coaching that we wanted to share with you today is you can choose your emotions.
Yeah. And I think this always starts with the precursor of it doesn't feel that way always when it is introduced that you can choose your emotions. Because, when you are not regulated with your emotions, you're acting out of instinct and out of response. But just accepting the belief that you can choose your emotions can be really empowering. So we often listen out for language that our clients will use, so coaching trainees will use. How did that make you feel? Whereas we take the approach that nothing can make you feel a certain way. It's your own internal representation system. It's the way that you see the world, the values, the beliefs that you hold that lead to you having that emotional experience. So therefore, if you can change your values, change your beliefs, change the way you look about the world, then it is possible for you to have a different experience. That's not necessarily something that you would change overnight, but if you were to be able to choose your emotions, then what would you choose? Like, how would you like to feel about this differently? And I think this is particularly empowering for people who talk about confidence as an example. Like, okay, so if right now you're not experiencing confidence, how would you like to feel instead? Oh, well, I'd like to feel this, and this. Great. Should we work on that? And just knowing that actually it's within the sphere of possibility to be able to feel differently about something can be empowering in itself.
Yeah, and when we talk about choosing to feel a certain way, sometimes what we do as coaches is we help our clients to be able to anchor into different emotions, and that can be about helping them to embody different emotions, to know how different emotions feel, because lots of people don't know that. I have worked with lots of clients over the years who would describe that they have quite a narrow emotional range. So part of the work that we do as a coach is to help our clients to extend their emotional range back out really to what it would have been, when we first joined this planet, before we, tend to filter to fit in different places, so that they can live a more fulfilled life. It's about helping our clients to be able to identify those different emotions, to be able to articulate them, and be able to, in the moment, be able to shift an emotion if they choose to. And they may not choose to in the moment. Sometimes it's good to feel angry or frightened, or some emotions are what we call accelerants. So they give us energy, and they're full of energy that needs to be expressed. And some emotions are kind of take that energy away and kind of take us into ourselves. But all of the work that we do is about helping our coachees to identify what is going to be most helpful to them in the here and now and
Yeah,
moving
and
forward.
in the context of their goal, um, and that is fundamentally what the emotions coaching is about. And we believe that you just can't be an exceptional coach without leaning into this space with confidence, with curiosity, and with courage to help clients, with their emotions, because it's a huge part of who they are, how they experience the world, and how they will go on to achieve the outcomes that they're looking for. So hope that has whet your appetite. We actually talk about the emotions, the principles of emotions in our book, Deciding to Coach. We have a whole chapter dedicated to emotions, amongst many other things, because emotions are a big part of making any decision, let alone the decision to come and train as a coach. So do buy our book, check that out. And if you're thinking you'd like to work with people around emotions, then come and do our quiz at mycoachingcourse.com, which will help you to decide which coaching course is right for you.